Hi, Dean.
Hi.
Hello, Dean. Greetings from Asia. My name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled You're Worthless. Read that again. The juxtaposition of your very soul. First off, I'd like to say thank you very much for saying yes to be interviewed today. Um, I cannot wait to have you on the show, to be honest, because when I read your profile, you talked a lot about meditation.
Mhm.
It is actually something that I myself have found the wonders of it just a couple of years back. And right now,
Oh, good.
I
Okay.
think everybody has their own ways of meditating. And I'm as each day goes by, I am more appreciative of, one can adapt their own meditation. It could be music, it could be sitting in silence, it could be anything under the sun, to be honest. But yeah,
It has a lot of variations and means a lot of different things to different people,
that's right, that's right.
and it is the most productive healing tool that we have available to us.
Exactly. I love the way you put it. The most productive healing tool. So that's two things because if you break it down, productive, at least I used to think of it as hustle, 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 grind, grind, grind.
Mhm.
And then healing is I take the time and choose the time to heal myself. And actually, it's not. It's like slowing down just to speed up in your life. So it's what a paradox. But yeah.
Well, it is an essential tool in order to heal from distortions of perception of ourself. And distortions of the perception of self are the source and the cause of all of the stress that we experience in the
Mm.
course of a lifetime. And so consequently, what you do in meditation, what everyone that allows themselves to experience meditation is learn to invert the awareness that we all have inherently available to us. But when we are in that, let me back up. And I've taught meditation for over 20 years. And what I explain to my students is that we simultaneously exist in both the metaphysical world and the physical world. And you and I right now are analog projections of our metaphysical self.
Mm.
And as an analog projection of our metaphysical self, we are participating in the village, which is the physical world, but we also simultaneously exist in the metaphysical world, which is our guru self. And
Higher self.
so meditation allows us to invert the awareness that we inherently have, to become aware of the self and begin to dissolve the distortions of perception of self that causes all of the pain and suffering that we experience. All problems exist in the village. When we
Mm.
allow ourselves to be our guru self, then we are going into the guru's cave for a period of time, hopefully every day. And the length of time can extend, be productive, whether it's 10 or 15 minutes of meditation or multiple hours of meditation. But the effect is to allow ourselves to gain perspective. Um, when we're working, we work hard throughout the week, all year long, and we go on vacation. And in time, we spend 2, 3 days, whatever, to get out of that workaday mode and then begin to relax into the vacation, enjoy the change of environment, the change of scenery, change of routine, and so forth. We come back from vacation, and the same problems existed after vacation as existed prior to vacation, but our perspective on those problems is dramatically changed, not because the problems have changed, but because we have changed. And so consequently, when we allow ourselves that vacation time on a daily basis by going to the guru's cave, we likewise have that change of perspective on what we're dealing with as the problems in the village. Again, the problems haven't changed, but we have changed. We've transformed ourselves and allowed ourselves to have a different perspective of how we are interacting with our experiences of everyday life. And so the entire process that we experience as humans is we are designed to create at the beginning of every lifetime a hierophant or a false self, a false identity, an ego. It's all the same thing, just different words, different names for the same thing. And we perpetuate this false self for the sole purpose of getting more of what we like. Every person is motivated to get more of what they like. What they like will vary from person to person, but that notwithstanding, our objective is to get more of what we like. No one wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to go out and get more of what I don't like today. Everyone who still has hope anticipates getting more of what they like. We create this false identity in order to trick the world into giving us more of what we like. While we do that, then we perpetuate our stress and suffering. And so consequently, our task as humans, as people experiencing this commonality of the earth experience, is to become aware that that is not fruitful. That's not going to get us more of what we like other than on an immediate gratification basis. In other words, we have to perpetuate that process over and over and over and over again in order to get some degree of perception of getting more of what we like. When we allow ourselves to invert that awareness that we're using to trick the world into giving us more of what we like, and invert that internally, become aware of the beliefs that we've incorporated into this false identity, do we begin to become aware? We learn the lessons that have been brought to us by our experiences, and we begin to become aware of the beliefs that we've incorporated into this false identity that perpetuate our stress and suffering, and begin to let those go. When we begin to become aware and surrender those false beliefs, those erroneous beliefs, we become more of our authentic self. In our authentic self, which we all are without exception, there's no one that is not essentially the same and that doesn't find the same condition of being to be completely gratifying and completely fulfilling. We begin to experience the happiness that we seek by trying to trick the world into giving us more of what we like. And it's a transformational process. We learn by analogy, which means we learn by trial and error, by comparison and contrast. And as we begin to become aware of our authentic self and feel that authentic self more frequently and more completely, then we have an immutable experience, which means we all feel essentially the same about the inherent happiness of our authentic self. Meditation allows us to do that by becoming aware of what it is that we have incorporated into this false perception of self, liberate those beliefs that no longer serve us, become more of our authentic self, and become happier. Happiness fills the void that is created by the reduction of our stress. Stress is the product of our false self, our false perception of self. And so consequently, when we, bliss is nothing more than the absence of stress. If we were able to completely do away with all stress, we would be in a condition of bliss constantly. And so happiness is not something that we can go out and get. It's not something that can be given to us. It is our inherent condition of being that fills the void left when stress disappears. So the less stress that we have in our life, which is entirely up to us, to surrendering this perception of false self, happiness automatically fills that void, just like water flowing into an empty vessel. And so consequently, meditation allows us to accomplish that healing process by using the inherent awareness that we have to heal ourselves from our false perceptions of self. I love the title of your podcast because I'm a mental health counselor in addition to other things. The one basic belief that almost everyone that I work with has is that they are inadequate or they are not worthy or some variation of that, but it's all essentially the same belief. When they come to that awareness that I am worthy, they get a better perspective of who they are, and so consequently they reduce their stress by reducing their efforts to trick the world into giving them more of what they like. And so that inherent happiness begins to fill that void and liberates them from the burdens of negativity that they carry in their perception of self, and they get happier. How happy they get is entirely up to them. That is the process of healing that will perpetuate beyond this lifetime into multiple lifetimes until eventually the evolutionary process is to eventually surrender that false perception of self entirely and experience that constant condition of bliss.
When you were explaining, I had two questions, and
Okay.
then it seems like you have explained all of them, but I would love to go back to these two questions, and then also for the benefits of our listener, I would like to give a bit of your introduction for them because we dove straight into the conversation. This is what I love. We started the conversation and then we went right into it. So please allow me to introduce yourself, Dean, to our listeners, and then we can resume
Okay. I'm
our
sorry.
chat.
I got
That's
ahead. I put
okay.
the cart before the horse.
No, that's okay. I love it. It's because I am a person. I used to be the one that goes, um, 1, 2, 3. Right now, I let it flow, and and I love it.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for
So
your patience with me.
no worries. Hey everyone, we have Dean Graves here with us. Dean Graves is a renowned meditation teacher, mental health counselor, and spiritual guide with over 20 years of experience in this field. Through his expertise in mental health and deep spiritual understanding, he provides a holistic approach to healing and growth. Dean's story is simple and in many ways is remarkably unremarkable. For approximately 50 years of his life, he led a typical American life. Around his 50th year, he began to meditate, and through that meditation, Dean has been able to glean significant information and insights into the topics that he has taught to others for 20 plus years. So, Dean, I cannot wait to get right back into our conversation. But first, please, can you share with us what was it like growing up as a Dean Graves?
Well, it was when I say typical, I mean that it was full of all of the stresses and anxieties that most people experience. Um, my professional career was in business, and like all of my peers, I was striving for what I perceived to be success, and it was constantly stressful, and it was actually, in retrospect, constant suffering that I was perpetuating by virtue of my beliefs and what the perceptions of our signs of success are in a lifetime. And along about my 50th year, and this is a common experience and is really the design of our intended experience as we reach a point of realization of our unhappiness. That
Mm-hmm.
all that we've learned to do and all of the skills that we've learned in order to try to manipulate the world around us are not fulfilling. They're not providing us with greater happiness. And that is an awakening. That's all an awakening is the realization that all this stuff that I've been doing is not fulfilling. It's not making me happier. When a person reaches that point, the task is to begin to look around and observe others that we deem to be happier than we are, and to find alternatives not only to our behavior and objectives, but to our perceptions of self. And so consequently, we will, again, by trial and error and by comparison and contrast, we begin to mimic others that we deem to be happier than we are. And we will mimic their behavior, their ideologies, and so forth until we see that it's working for us. If it's not working for us, then we'll dismiss that and look for someone else to emulate, to mimic. We mimic someone who we have in achieving greater happiness until that no longer works for us. Then we will look for someone else to mimic that seems even happier than that person is. But at each plateau that we achieve in our journey of greater happiness, we become that level of happiness, that degree of self-awareness. And ultimately, we come to the realization that we are our own best guide. And at that point, we will have become awareness. And awareness is very important because this is what we are tasked with learning with this range of consciousness that we all share. So the process is a step process. We awaken and decide that all that we've been doing before isn't working. And so I got to do something different. And then we will become aware. We will learn to explore awareness itself. Meditation, that's where meditation is so valuable. A tool to invert that same tool that we've been using our whole life, but pointed outside of us. Invert that awareness inside, become more and more aware until such time as we reach that point of becoming awareness. And at that point of becoming awareness, we become our own mentor. That is a major step in our evolutionary process. It is a major step in the process of enlightenment. And enlightenment is a process. Most people perceive of enlightenment as being a destination, primarily because the Buddha essentially introduced the concept of enlightenment and had tremendous success. That was also by design. The Buddha became a figure to emulate, not essentially achievable by most people.
Not in this
by
lifetime, at
intent,
least.
yes, in a single lifetime, or
Yeah.
even in multiple lifetimes, because the Buddha was intended to be a figure to emulate and to be an extreme example of the path that we need to follow in order
Right.
to achieve greater happiness. And so the Buddha was not a god. It was not somebody to worship. It was an example for us to begin to mimic in order to become self-aware and surrender these false perceptions of self.
Wow. Okay, so you mentioned during the earlier part of the conversation, somebody who wakes up, who has hopes, right? And they wake up. What about those person who have lost hope? People who are depressed.
Okay.
What is, yeah.
Okay. Well, every experience that we have is a message to us about ourselves. We interpret those experiences uniquely according to how we are. But that notwithstanding, every experience that we have is actually a message to us that we have attracted because of the way we are. We are magnetic. We attract our experiences. And so consequently, it's like a homework assignment. And if you don't do your homework, if you don't learn the lesson that's in your homework, that doesn't mean that the homework is no longer due. It just means you didn't do it. You went and did you watched television, or you did some other thing other than doing your homework. The homework is still due. So it's an assignment to us. If we don't do our homework, then we get to retain that homework assignment in the form of an emotion. And we get to carry that emotion with us until we do our homework, when we learn our lesson. when we learn the lesson, then we get to put that homework assignment, that emotion aside, and no longer have to deal with it anymore because we've learned the lesson. Over a lifetime, if we accumulate enough homework assignments, that has weight. We all have the same potential energy available to us. And this energy has to run our mind, our body, everything, including carrying the weight of the emotions that we have not learned our lesson from. And so this available energy becomes depleted because it's diverted to carry the emotional baggage that we have accumulated over a lifetime only because we haven't done
Done the
our homework.
homework.
And so if before you were born, someone told you that your mission in life is just to run down to the end of the street. That's all you have to do, and you'll have a successful, fulfilling life. And they give you new running shoes and a new cute running outfit, and you're all ready to go, and you start running, and then you start to run, and somebody comes up to you and hands you a 300-pound ball of concrete and says, your mission is the same, but you have to carry this 300-pound ball of concrete. Well, you think, well, I can't do that. I can't run and carry this 300-pound ball of concrete. So how am I going to do this? Well, you have to get rid of the ball of concrete. It is permissible. There's absolutely no rules against it. You can set that whole ball of concrete down at one time and continue to run down to the end of the street. But in this ball of concrete are all of your life lessons that you haven't learned. So it's more probable that you're going to have to take one chunk out of the ball of concrete at a time as you do your homework, as you learn your lesson.
Mm.
And
You're
so
chipping
as you
away.
do,
You're
chipping
chipping
away.
yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
As you chip away at it, it gets lighter. So the energy that you were using to carry this ball of concrete become available for you to accomplish your mission of running down to the end of the street. And so what we are doing by healing, by surrendering these false perceptions of self, is we're taking chunks of this concrete out incrementally. So every time we achieve success in lightening our load, the load gets lighter. We have more energy to accomplish our mission. The end result is to be that empty vessel that the Buddha spoke of in order to not be distracted by our false perceptions of self and to be able to experience every new experience that we have with our full capabilities of energy and awareness and our beings. So the healing process is twofold. The enlightenment process is twofold. One is healing, and the most basic is healing the emotional baggage that we've collected, and also becoming aware of these beliefs that we were alluding to before in the early part of our conversation, and surrendering the beliefs distort our perception of self. And so we become more enlightened. We demonstrate more ethical, more moral, more behavior that are deemed to be positive attributes. We no longer need to trick the world into giving us more of what we like because that inherent happiness is already within us, and we display that. And so it's a twofold step: healing that emotional baggage and surrendering the beliefs that we've incorporated into our false perception of self, our false identity. But they're not sequential. They happen at the same time. As you heal the emotional baggage, then you become more aware. So you become more aware of the beliefs that you've incorporated, and they become simultaneous. Awareness is both our discovery tool of what needs to be healed and our healing tool. Because, for example, if you are leaving your house to go to work one day and you walk out your front door and you're going to get in your car, but you see your car has a flat tire. You've discovered the problem, but you're not going to just leave it there and never drive the car again. You're going to fix the tire. Either you're going to change the tire or you're going to call somebody to change the tire. Whatever process, your awareness will heal that problem. The same is true when we become aware of the emotional baggage, or we become aware of the belief that we've incorporated into our false identity, that awareness is going to let it go. You say, I don't need that anymore. That's silly. A person that experiences depression or even feels that they are burdened, and depression is a progressive process. As you add to this ball of concrete and it gets heavier and heavier and heavier, you have less energy in order to function. There's one common characteristic of everyone that experiences depression is, I feel heavy. It feels heavy. What could possibly feel heavy? Well, it's the emotional baggage that you're carrying. When your mind, body, spirit has inadequate energy in order to function and to think clearly and to just simply go through the course of your day, that is because it doesn't have enough energy, because the energy is diverted to carrying this emotional baggage that you've collected. Just like if you think of yourself as an electrical outlet, and you have so much energy that's given to you as an electrical outlet, and if you plugged a dozen hair dryers into that one outlet, none of the hair dryers, they'll run, but none of them will run properly. As you unplug those hair dryers, and the one hair dryer that is meant to be plugged into that electrical outlet runs just fine. So the healing from depression is the process of reducing the size of this emotional baggage, this ball of concrete, liberating the energy that you have available to you in order to function more properly, and go on with your day, accomplish your mission in life. But that is the process of healing from depression, or even the feelings of inadequacy that we all have as a population to contend with, because we don't know who we are. And so it is a process that we have to undertake ourselves, and certainly people can guide us to do that, but the actual application of the awareness in order to heal this has to come internally.
I love every single word that you just mentioned. So say a person has, because the healing is a constant process, say they have achieved one level of awareness, then they had, I would say, become aware previously. I guess the question here is that, and you also mentioned a person emulates somebody that is happy, right? Is that person emulating every single time? And does he or she need to be looking at a person, like I said, externally, or they see a person, they emulate it, and then they reflect it back on themselves, and then they tweak it, and then find their happiness? Is it a one time thing, or they see a person and then they've emulated the level of happiness, and then when they choose again, they become more aware, they've achieved certain level of awareness, they see another person, or within themselves they've understood that, okay, I've achieved this, and I want to let go, I want to surrender. That
Well, it's a
yeah.
process. It's a process, and the process of living and having experiences is an incremental process that increases our awareness. So when we begin the process of awareness, once we've awakened, we realize, well, even before, while we're in this, the stage of life, which may be the majority of one's life, where we are in relative chaos. Marketing of products works because invariably the marketer will show a product being used by someone that looks happy. No one's going to buy a product that is marketed by or displayed by somebody that looks unhappy. And so we, as humans, we think, well, if I had that product, then I'd be just as happy as that person.
Yes.
Okay? And so we go through that process, we try the products, and, particularly car sellers are good at this. They always show somebody really happy driving their new car. And so we buy the car, we drive the car for 6 months, and we come to the realization it's just a car. It didn't make me any happier. Okay,
Same
but
like iPhones.
iPhones, exactly. You need this new iPhone and you'll be happy. That's all you need to be happy. The same is
Mhm.
true with our essential self. We observe someone that we deem to be happier than we are because they seem to be more calm, peaceful, whatever. They experience less stress. And so we will emulate that person, we will mimic that person until we achieve that level of awareness, of happiness. And it goes in plateaus because we need time to digest what we have learned, the information we have learned, the awareness of ourselves that we have learned. So it's a stair-step process. It's not a straight vertical line that we're trying to achieve. And so we will emulate someone that we deem to be happier in than ourselves, reach that plateau. We're digesting the information and the transformation of ourself for a while. And then we start looking around again. This person over here looks even happier than I am now. And so we begin to mimic that person until we achieve that level. And so we are, as a population, we serve as we are both the teacher and the student, because as we achieve this next level of consciousness, this next level of happiness, then we become a model for other people that have yet to achieve that
Um,
level. And so
uh,
we assist each other as alternating between the roles between teacher and student. And
mm,
actually, when you consciously become aware that you are a teacher, your healing process accelerates because you accept that responsibility of being a teacher to
mm,
others. And if you really want to learn something, teach it. Not just don't
yeah,
just be a student, but if because you look and whether consciously or unconsciously, accept that responsibility of being a teacher to those that are observing you and deem you to be happier
their
than they are.
model.
The model,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And the 12-step process that is so often used in addiction recovery, that is the model that they use. You first have to become self-aware, which are the lower 4 or 5 steps. As you work through and become aware of the top 7 layers of work that you do in that 12-step process, you're becoming a teacher. And so you repeat that process over and over and over, that each time you have greater awareness to become more aware of the distortions of perception that you have, and you move up into higher layers of teaching ability, and then you repeat the process again, and it perpetuates that stair-step process of self-healing as well as being a model for others.
Mm. I love the term. You're both a teacher and a student at the same time, because right now, as you were speaking, I have just come to I've realized this before, but right now I'm reliving that again. Like I would want to be. I'm trying to emulate something. I'm trying to emulate you in a sense. It's like because at every moment you're absorbing and observing at the same time. And then when you're saying something, it's like, yes, it is true. The way you are um projecting, and that when you're aware that you are a teacher, and how it because it's in it's innate. And especially that I'm in podcasting, it is
Mhm.
something that I would like to emulate. Like, and the topic that we're talking about right now is a very something that's very dear to me. So when I was asking the question, do you emulate at this every time, unconsciously and consciously? So right now, by asking that question, I am aware that I'm emulating subconsciously then, but right now I'm emulating consciously
Mhm.
because I want to better myself, because I like the way that you were explaining things.
Well, thank you.
And that and now and if I were to apply it to the bigger context of the people, The same thing, our close friends, our family members, or our colleagues, when they see somebody that's they've attained or on the way of attaining something and they seem happier, they cannot help but wonder. Now they have the choice whether they want to follow that path. What is it that he or she is doing to
Mhm.
achieve that? Or they can choose to be in the mindset of, oh, he or she has the opportunity and that's why they can do it and choose to stay,
Yeah,
quote unquote, stuck.
right.
Yeah,
Well, we stay the same until the pain of staying the same is
it's
greater
unbearable.
than the pain of change. And then we change.
Yeah, yeah,
And so all that we can do, you can lead someone to water, but you can't make them drink.
them drink it.
Yeah, it
Yes,
has
yes.
to be an internal process that they go through, that an internal awareness that I
Mm,
need to change me in order to change the nature of my experience.
mm. I love that. Dean, are we alone in the universe?
No, no. As a matter of fact, the universe is a very busy place. We have been intentionally in a condition of isolation because of the difficulties that our population has had in evolving. We are, to a large degree, an anomaly in that we have cycled within the lower dimensions of consciousness, of the range of consciousness that we experience, that we all share.
Mm,
That is in a rapid condition of transformation, and my information advises me that it is highly probable that in the very near future, physical evidence of our extraterrestrial guides
mm-hmm.
are going to be making more and more significant appearances to a degree that it can't be denied.
Yes.
And
You
that
can't
is
ignore
imminent.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's imminent, and it's purposeful because the population, um, their interpretation has achieved a level of awareness to permit acceptability, as
Mm,
well as the necessity of it in order to make us more of a participant in the creation
increasing.
experience. Yeah.
I cannot help but wonder, are we in, I mean, the population, are we like standing on the two sides of the spectrum? Like one remains at the lower level range of consciousness, and we have another part of it that's awakening, that's collectively increasing the level of just. But then you're saying that it will be imminent. It is going to be. We can't deny it. It's happening.
Mhm.
Um, whether we like it or not. So I myself perceive it as that. You just said a couple of seconds ago that this extraterrestrial guides, let's not say it, beings, guides, they're coming and they're showing us that the change needs to happen.
Yeah, the population of the Earth as a whole has a tremendous number of institutionalized false perceptions, and these are all part of the beliefs that we've incorporated into our individual identities that we've been alluding to, and they are very restrictive, these beliefs, and keep us cycling, unwilling, if not unable to become aware of the potential of our range of consciousness. And so consequently, and we are very tactile, we're very physical world oriented, as is everyone in our that shares our range of consciousness, not just on Earth, but that's characteristic of this range of consciousness throughout creation. We need some sort of physical, tactile identification of the realness of our extraterrestrial guides.
Hmm.
And so it's not necessary. They're always available to us. I mean, we just need to call upon them to share with
Mm-hmm.
us their wisdom and knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to make it believable for us, they need to be making physical world appearances. Now, the difficulty is, and this is gets into vibrational understandings, we are a very dense, very low vibration level of consciousness. They are much higher. So they have to make themselves dense in order to appear to us, to interact with us on a tactile level, on a physical world level. And so it is a great effort on their part in order to provide this
To break
opportunity for
through.
learning. That's
Yeah.
right. They essentially have to create a tunnel for them to get dense and to experience. But it's all conceptual. And so because it's conceptual, it's not a matter of them taking physical form. It's the physical form of perception that we can have of their appearance. And it will probably be incremental, and then it will grow. The resources resources are available now in order for us to accept the resource as authentic. They're taking the step of visiting us more frequently and to a greater degree of authentic perception on our.
And there's so many things that you mentioned, and that is why things in my head just pop up, and that's why they're light beings. Because when you're light, information passes through you easily, and when you're at the lower range of consciousness, nothing can get through you because you're dense. So people call you dense.
Yeah.
And then, and that's also on the other side of it. That's when you learn to tap into your intuition. That's why people say big faith.
Well, that is what we as individual perceiving autonomous beings. It is incumbent upon us to accept or reject their wisdom based upon how it feels to us. We interpret every experience according to how it feels to us. If it feels right, if it feels good for us, then that's something that we will accept and incorporate into our perception of self. If it doesn't feel right, then that is something that we need to reject. We will reject it either because we are defending and protecting this false perception of self and all these beliefs that we've incorporated into our identity, or it doesn't align with that perception of what's going to make me happier. Our authentic self is already happiness. So the more that we can surrender these false beliefs that we function according to, the more we are going to reveal our authentic self and allow ourselves to evolve.
The tool, one of the tools to get there is through meditation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, the meditation allows us to step out of the village, which is full of problems, and into that problem-less self and assess it honestly according to how we are. And our only limitation is the earnestness with which we approach that process.
I love that. The only limitation is our earnestness and how we reach the process. Wow, Dean, you need to have your own talk show. Yes.
Well, I do have 2 podcasts as well as several books that I've written.
Oh, yeah, I read your website. Yes. Could you share with us your podcast and a bit about your books?
Well, I have 2 podcasts. One is called Simple Enlightenment, and it is really a course of study. So begin at the beginning episode of the podcast and simply follow through, and it describes the nature of creation, the structure of creation, the nature of our relationship to the universe and to creation. The other is an ongoing podcast. I'm just working on the latest episode today, as a matter of fact. And it's called Chatting with the Arcturians. And it is a conversation through my significant other is a channel that we chat just like you and I are chatting with the Arcturians, which is a different body but parallel to us that has been in the process a lot longer than our area. and they
Mm-hmm.
just simply share their wisdom with us. And it's a very, they have a great sense of humor, so that it's light for the most part. Some of the episodes are heavier, but they're providing us with information and, offering wisdom and guidance to us to advance our condition. Um, for those who read, not just can read, but do read, I have 4 books. One is called Enlightenment, Plain and Simple, which is an introductory book that it gives people some immediate tools that they can use to start becoming more aware and reducing healing distortions of perception. Another book is The Identity Model, Understanding and Healing Stress and Suffering, which is what we've talked a lot about today, and it explains in much more detail the nature of this hierophant, this false perception of self that we're obligated to correct or to create, and how to correct that, and how it manifests in behaviors like depression that we experience. I would call it an introductory level, but it's much more advanced than the first book we talked about, Edifying Children of a Lesser God, Answers to Existential Questions. And it is a foundational book for a better understanding of of creation and our participation in it. And I have a new book that's hitting bookshelves August 30th of this year. It's imminent, and that's my compendium book, and it takes you from the beginning of creation through Christ consciousness and everything in between. And it in detail talks about how creation is structured and the levels of consciousness and where we are in that structure of things, and what our objectives, what our obligations are to fulfill the curriculum of this range of consciousness. And it's a much more complete book than all of the others. So those are the first 3 books are available now on Amazon. And the last book is called The Enigma of Consciousness, a spiritual exploration of humanity's relationship to creation. And that will be available on bookshelves internationally on August 30th of this year. So you can listen to the podcast now. You can get the books on Amazon. They're available. And then August 30th, the compendium book that kind of puts it all together will be available in just a few months now.
Wow, you've got so many things done over the past couple of years, and this is why I can already see myself. I'd like to emulate what he's doing, and that's why I feel like there's this affinity. Okay, so he's been in this space for a while, and that's why when I ask about your books, and then you yourself having 2 podcasts, in fact, not just one.
Right.
So
yes,
you are one of my idols now, Dean.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you. That was not my intent, but
No, but
the objective of all the work that I'm doing is to provide people with information and tools, literally tools that they can use in order to heal their perceptions of self and find greater happiness and move forward on the enlightenment path.
the continuum of the enlightenment
Yes,
steps.
right.
Whew. Okay, Dean, what happens when we die?
Well, we, as we talked about before, we simultaneously exist in both the metaphysical world and the physical world. And if you think of, we are all on a sports team, okay? And a sports team practices all week long, and they look at game films of what they've done before, and coach yells at them and coaches them on doing better, and then you have another game. What we are experiencing right now is the game. We're in the game. And when the game is over, when we die, then we will simply reintegrate with our metaphysical self, and we will go through that process of practicing for another week before the next game. And once we have cured our foibles that we did or didn't do in the last game, then the coach says, okay, we're ready. We'll play another game. Then we go into another game.
Wow.
And we
But then
do it again.
we don't remember. That's why
Well,
here
see,
on
that's
Earth we're remembering.
That's a very important part of this experience, because understand that we are an experiment. And the experiment is to how completely we can explore the depth and breadth of awareness.
Oh,
That is our ultimate task.
yes.
And so
That is the goal.
consequently, since it's an experiment, you want to eliminate as much experimenter bias as you can. And so we experience what's called the forgetting, which we forget all of our past lives. We forget our metaphysical self. We forget all of that so that we can begin this episode based upon how much we have achieved in previous lives. Our
Oh,
metaphysical self is our eternal light. That is actually what is evolving. And so consequently, all that we have learned from previous incarnations has shaped our consciousness pattern, which is our metaphysical self. And so from that condition of being as a metaphysical self, we incarnate at that point of our advancement.
yes.
And whatever we learn in this lifetime reintegrates with that metaphysical self, with that consciousness pattern, and moves that consciousnous pattern forward or backward. We
Up
can go
and
backward
middle.
too.
Yeah,
we
we
can go
could
either
go.
way.
Yeah. Yes.
But we will incarnate. The average human has incarnated over 3,000 times, and some as many as 8,000. And so consequently, we're exploring everything that there is to experience in this range of consciousness, this range of physicality. And the lessons, what is preserved after our lifetime, are what we have learned about awareness, love, wisdom, unity, and stillness. And these are the 5 inherent characteristics of the one infinite creator. And it's how creation is structured. Those are the only things that are preserved. Doesn't matter how many degrees or university accolades that you have accomplished. What is preserved are those characteristics of the 5 inherent characteristics that actually form your consciousness pattern and determine your degree of advancement along the evolutionary scale. And so all we do, we die, and we take what we've learned on those 5 inherent characteristics, surrender our ego that we've created, and integrate with our metaphysical self and move forward.
So, in essence, you don't have to take life so seriously.
You don't have life security?
I mean, you don't have to take life. Yes, if you see it that way, you don't have to take life seriously because
we take it much too seriously. It's
Yes.
intended to be enjoyable.
Exactly. That's what
but
I
because
meant.
of our false perceptions of self, we intensify its
Everything.
significance. Yeah.
Yes.
But
Exactly.
if we didn't think it was real, we wouldn't pay attention to it. If we
That's
were
right.
dismissive of it, it wouldn't have the same value to us.
And that's why the key of it is being balanced and, of course, being aware.
Yeah, and because of our false perceptions, we perceive that there's the potential for retribution for not doing good.
Yeah.
There is no good, there is no bad, there's
Bad.
just experience.
Experience.
And so consequently, the measure of how we're doing is how happy we are.
Oh,
That's the measure of how we're doing.
I love that. The measure is how happy we are. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, Dean, what is next for you?
What is next for me? Well, I'm following the yellow brick road, and so I don't know what is, other than sharing this information and messaging this in every opportunity, that I see as my function, my purpose, is to provide this information and whatever guidance that I can offer to humanity to advance themselves and become more aware. And so that is a pretty monumental task when you consider the low level of awareness and information resources of the population. And so I'm just following the yellow brick road and doing what I can. I'm trying to get past the flying monkeys. So.
Oh, wow. I think I can say that too. Following the yellow brick road, so following the flow.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to continue to heal myself. It's an ongoing, constant process. We're all on the same journey. We're all on the same path. So, that's a constant process for me and for everyone. And there's always a next step. Um, you never get bored because the environment and circumstances change. But that's what we're all doing. Just some of us are aware of it and some of us are not.
Yeah, thank you. I think the listeners will have to ponder on that, and they will be pondering. At least I will be if I'm listening to this right now.
Good. Good. Okay. Well, I have achieved my goal then.
Yeah. So, Dean, what is your heart's greatest wish?
Is what?
What is your heart's greatest wish? Your heart's greatest
Yeah.
wish.
What is the role of the heart?
What is your heart's greatest wish? What do you wish for the most?
I wish for the population, as much of that as I can influence, to become more aware, to surrender their false perceptions of self as much as they can, and to simply become more of their authentic self and understand our authentic self is the one infinite creator. And it is only because of our lack of ability to perceive that we continue to create for ourselves and for others stress and suffering. And so consequently, that is the process of healing, is to surrendering those false perceptions of self. And so my heart desire is for the population to awaken, begin the process of healing, beginning to move more towards a perception of unity and codependency and less away from individual domination and subjugation
Tendencies.
of others.
If you could create a quote right now for you to leave to the audience listening and the world as your legacy, what would it be?
Quote,
Mm-hmm.
gee, don't put me on the spot or anything.
I get that a lot from my guests.
Well, very simply, become aware that you are the one infinite creator experiencing yourself at this range of consciousness, and surrender as much as you can those perceptions of unworthiness and self-deprivation, and begin to assume your responsibility to fulfill your purpose in life.
Preach. Thank you, Dean. So, Dean, how can people reach out to you?
I have a website, the initial D, deangraves.org, and I have on that contact information as well as information on the books and the podcast. They can tune in to the either podcast, Chatting with the Arcturians, or Simple Enlightenment on most major podcast hosts. So they can just search that on whatever podcast host that they use. I'd be happy to hear from people. I'm happy to do what I can to guide them in their journey.
Thank you. And there you have it, guys. You heard it from the person himself, Dean Graves. Before we close off, Dean, I'd like to personally thank you for the work that you're doing for the world and for advancing every step of the way despite the challenges, creating trails for those that will come after you. For our listeners, this has been that one podcast with that controversial name, You're Worthless. Read that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. If you find yourself thinking that you are worthless, well, you're not alone. But more importantly, ask yourself a level deeper, if I am worthless, then why the heck am I here? It is because your soul have chosen to be here energetically, all the way from the ethers, and for that reason itself, you are worthy and you are enough. This has been Dean Graves, your guest of the day, and Nick Nieras, your host, signing off. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.